An immigrant janitor studied late every night, unaware he'd inspire his daughter to become a doctor. The dim yellow light of the university hallway cast long shadows across Miguel Reyes' tired face as he pushed his cleaning cart past empty classrooms. 10 years in America, and still the midnight shift was the best he could manage. The only job that allowed him to be home when Sophia returned from school. The squeak of his rubber-soled shoes echoed through the quiet halls of the medical building. Tonight, like every night, the professor's offices waited for him. Whiteboards filled with complex diagrams, anatomical charts on the walls, thick textbooks left open on desks. Miguel didn't understand most of it, but he cleaned carefully around these treasures of knowledge, treating each book, each paper with reverence. "Buenas noches, doctor." "Harrison," Miguel said softly, entering the office of the department head. The professor wasn't there. He rarely worked this late, but Miguel spoke to the empty chair anyway. Small rituals kept loneliness at bay during the long nights. His cleaning cart bumped against the heavy oak desk, and Miguel caught a stack of papers before they fell. The top sheet bore a title, "Current Advances in Cardiovascular Surgery." Miguel's calloused fingers gently straightened the pages. Though his English reading was slow, he understood more than people assumed. Miguel glanced at the clock, 2:30 a.m. He had finished his assigned section early. Again. And like every night for the past 3 months, he locked the office door, sat in the professor's chair, and opened the notebook he kept hidden beneath his cleaning supplies. Inside were carefully copied diagrams from the whiteboards, vocabulary words with phonetic pronunciations scribbled in his native Spanish, and notes from medical textbooks he'd found left open. He wasn't stealing. He was borrowing knowledge that would otherwise be wiped away or shut between covers before dawn. His pencil moved slowly across the paper. Cardiovascular. His tongue struggled with the word, but his mind embraced it. Back home, Miguel had completed 2 years of university before his father's death forced him to abandon his education. The memory still ached, dreams of becoming a doctor vanishing overnight. But that was before Sophia was born, before America, before a new kind of dream took hold. 14-year-old Sophia Reyes opened her eyes in the gray pre-dawn light. The apartment was silent, except for the soft wheezing of her father's breathing from the next room. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him. He'd been home only 3 hours. He needed every minute of sleep he could get. In the kitchen, she moved with practiced quietness. The coffee maker gurgled softly as she prepared her father's morning cup, strong and sweet the way he liked it. Her homework lay spread across the small table. Algebra problems, half completed, an English essay outlined but not yet written. Sophia knew most kids her age didn't get up at 5:30 a.m. to do homework, but most kids didn't have her schedule. Most kids didn't have a father who worked from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., who slept while they were at school, who spent every waking moment either working or being present for her. As she worked through the algebra problems, her eyes occasionally drifted to the closed door of her father's room. What would happen when high school ended? College seemed an impossible dream given their finances. Her father never spoke about it, but she saw the worry lines that deepened on his forehead whenever school forms requesting parent signatures for college prep activities came home. The coffee maker beeped softly. Sophia poured a cup and set it on the counter to cool to the perfect temperature by the time her father would wake. This was their ritual, part of the intricate dance of their lives that allowed them to maximize their time together, despite impossible schedules. Her hand brushed against something hidden beneath a dish towel, her father's notebook. He'd left it out by accident. Sophia had seen him writing in it late at night when he thought she was asleep, but he kept its contents private. Her fingers hesitated. It felt like an invasion of privacy, but curiosity won out. She opened it to a random page and froze. Detailed drawings of the human heart stared back at her. Notes in her father's careful handwriting filled the margins. Spanish and English mixed together. Medical terms underlined multiple times. Questions noted with small stars. Sophia flipped through more pages, her heart racing. Diagrams of cellular structures. Lists of bones and muscles. Notes on diseases and treatments. And at the bottom of one page, a sentence in Spanish that made her throat tighten. For Sophia to show her anything is possible. She closed the notebook quickly when she heard the creak of her father's bedroom door. Sliding it back under the dish towel, she returned to her algebra homework, but her mind remained on those pages, on the revelation of her father's secret studies. Miguel emerged from his room, the smell of coffee pulling him from too short sleep. His bones ached from last night's work. The science building's floors had needed extra scrubbing after a student experiment gone wrong. "Buenos dias, papa," Sophia said, sliding the coffee toward him. "I made it strong today." Miguel smiled, the exhaustion momentarily lifting from his face. Gracias, mi vida. He took a sip, savoring both the bitter warmth and the few precious morning moments with his daughter before she left for school. You have the history test today, yes? He asked, settling into the chair across from her. Sophia nodded. And the science fair project is due next week. You have everything you need? His forehead creased with worry. Science fair projects required supplies they could rarely afford. Mrs. Chen said I can use the lab equipment after school. Sophia reassured him. And Mr. Williams gave me some extra materials. She didn't mention that her teachers often made special accommodations for her, recognizing both her intelligence and their financial limitations. Miguel's chest swelled with quiet pride. His daughter never complained about their circumstances, never asked for things he couldn't provide. Instead, she found ways to succeed despite the obstacles. She was so much stronger than he had been at her age. I'll be home late today, Sophia said, gathering her books. Study group for biology. Miguel nodded, though concern flickered in his eyes. Sophia was spending more time at school lately, taking advantage of after-hours tutoring and club activities. He worried she worked too hard. A child shouldn't carry such responsibility. But he also recognized the determination in her eyes, the same fire that had once burned in his own. Dinner will wait for you, he promised. Be careful coming home. After Sophia left, Miguel washed their breakfast dishes and prepared for his few hours of daytime life. His eyes caught sight of his notebook peeking out from under the dish towel. He was usually more careful about hiding it. Had Sophia seen it? The thought brought both anxiety and a strange sense of relief. Perhaps it was time to share more of himself with his daughter, to let her see beyond the tired janitor who cleaned floors and emptied trash. He opened the notebook to the newest page, where he'd been making notes on diabetes treatments. The subject fascinated him. His mother had died of complications from the disease back in Guatemala. If he'd known then what he was learning now, Miguel shook his head. No use dwelling on what couldn't be changed. He turned instead to the stack of community college brochures he'd collected, hidden beneath his mattress where Sophia wouldn't find them. Night classes in basic biology. The cost seemed insurmountable, but he'd been saving, a few dollars here and there from his meager salary, tucked away in an envelope labeled future. Not his future, Sophia's. But lately he'd allowed himself to wonder if there might be room for both. Sacre, the university science building hummed with activity as students rushed between evening classes. Miguel kept his head down, pushing his cleaning cart past groups of young people who barely registered his presence. Most nights he was invisible, just another immigrant worker maintaining the spaces where education happened for others. Tonight, though, something was different. As he turned the corner toward the biochemistry lab, he nearly collided with Dr. Harrison, the professor whose office he cleaned each night. Oh, I'm sorry, Miguel said, stepping back quickly. Doctor, Harrison looked up from the papers in his hand, his expression shifting from distraction to recognition. You're Miguel, right? You cleaned my office. Surprise flickered across Miguel's face. See, yes, sir, for 3 years now. The professor nodded, shuffling his papers. You always put my books back exactly where they were. I appreciate that. He paused, studying Miguel more closely. I've noticed some of my papers are often rearranged, not missing, just reorganized. Miguel's heart sank. He'd been careful to return everything exactly as he found it, but clearly not careful enough. I'm sorry, sir. They're organized better than I left them. Dr. Harrison interrupted, a small smile forming. Especially the cardiovascular research. Almost like someone with the interest in the subject has been reviewing them. Heat rushed to Miguel's face. He stared at the floor, gripping the handle of his cart tightly. I will stop, sir. I did not mean... Do you have an interest in medicine, Miguel? The question hung in the air between them. Miguel raised his eyes slowly, searching the professor's face for anger or mockery, but finding only curiosity. Since I was a boy, he admitted quietly. I studied in Guatemala before. He trailed off, unsure how to explain the complicated path that had led him from medical studies to pushing a cleaning cart through American hallways. Doctor, Harrison nodded thoughtfully. You know, the department has a small library of outdated textbooks we were planning to discard. Nothing current enough for our students, but the basic anatomy and physiology doesn't change. He paused. They're yours if you want them. Miguel stared at him, unable to form words. My office tomorrow night. Doctor, Harrison said, already walking away. I'll leave them on the chair. Gracias. Miguel finally managed, the word catching in his throat. Thank you, sir. The professor waved without turning around, disappearing around the corner and leaving Miguel standing in the hallway, his carefully constructed world shifting beneath his feet. Summoning. Sophia bent over the microscope in the empty high school science lab, adjusting the focus to better see the cell structures on the slide. The building had officially closed an hour ago, but Mr. Williams, her biology teacher, had given her permission to stay late to work on her science fair project. Still here, Sophia? Mrs. Chen, the chemistry teacher, poked her head into the lab. It's almost 7. Sophia straightened, rubbing her eyes. Just finishing up, Mrs. Chen. My project is on cellular responses to different medications. I think I've got enough data now. Mrs. Chen smiled, entering the room to look at Sophia's meticulous notes. This is college-level work, you know. Have you thought more about the summer medical program I mentioned? The application deadline is next week. Sophia's enthusiasm dimmed. I looked at the information, but she hesitated. There's the application fee, and even with a scholarship, my dad would have to drive me there every day. The gas alone would be... She stopped, uncomfortable discussing money with her teacher. Mrs. Chen nodded, understanding the unspoken. There are hardship waivers for the fees, Sophia. And as for transportation, she hesitated. Several teachers have been talking. We could arrange carpooling. Doctor, Patel lives near your neighborhood. Sophia's eyes widened. You've been discussing me? We discuss all promising students. Mrs. Chen said gently. And you're exceptional, Sophia. Your science aptitude, your work ethic. We see medical school in your future, if that's what you want. Medical school. The words echoed in Sophia's mind, connecting to the images of diagrams in her father's secret notebook. Was it possible? The cost alone seemed insurmountable. And yet, I'll think about it, she promised, already calculating how she might approach the subject with her father. Later, as Sophia walked the 12 blocks home through the darkening streets, her mind raced with possibilities. The summer medical program could be her first real step toward becoming a doctor. A dream she'd barely allowed herself to acknowledge, even to herself. Their apartment building came into view, its brick facade weathered and uninspiring in the twilight. But tonight, Sophia looked at it differently. If her father could study medical texts after midnight shifts, if he could hold on to dreams while scrubbing floors, then perhaps some dreams weren't as impossible as they seemed. The apartment was empty when she arrived. Her father would be at work for several more hours. Sophia moved through their small home, turning on lights against the darkness, making the space feel lived in despite its emptiness. Her eyes caught on her father's coat hanging by the door. The edges frayed, the color faded from years of wear. He never bought himself new things, saving every penny for their needs, for their future. She reached into her backpack and pulled out the information packet for the summer medical program that Mrs. Chen had given her weeks ago. She smoothed the creased paper on the kitchen table and began filling out the application, her determination growing with each question she answered. By the time she heard her father's key in the lock, hours later, Sophia had completed everything except the parent signature line. She quickly slid the application into her school folder, not yet ready to share this fragile hope. The stack of textbooks sat on Dr. Harrison's chair exactly as promised. Miguel approached them carefully, as if they might disappear if he moved too quickly. 5 thick volumes, their covers worn, but their contents intact. Principles of Anatomy and Physiology, Fundamentals of Biochemistry, Basic Pharmacology, Introduction to Medical Diagnostics, Cellular Biology. His fingers trembled as he lifted the top book, opening it to find a note scrawled on the inside cover. Knowledge belongs to those who seek it. Harrison. For a moment, Miguel couldn't breathe. The weight of the book in his hands felt like both an anchor and a lifeline. These weren't just discarded textbooks. They were an acknowledgement. Someone had seen him, not just the janitor pushing a cart, but the man who still dreamed of understanding how the human body worked, how disease could be fought, how healing could happen. He set the books carefully in the bottom of his cleaning cart, covering them with supplies. They were too precious to leave at work, too important to risk losing. Tonight he would take them home. Tonight he would show Sophia what had been occupying his late-night hours. Perhaps it was time they both stopped hiding their dreams from each other. As Miguel finished cleaning Dr. Harrison's office, his movements had a new energy. The familiar ache in his back and shoulders remained, but it was overshadowed by a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He wasn't just cleaning a space for others to learn. He was creating a path for his own learning. The night shift ended faster than usual. Miguel clocked out at 4 a.m., his cart heavier with the weight of the textbooks, his step lighter despite the hour. The bus was nearly empty for his ride home, allowing him to guard his precious cargo without drawing attention. When he opened the apartment door, expecting darkness and silence, he was surprised to find the kitchen light on and Sophia sitting at the table, surrounded by papers. Sophia? Why are you awake? It's after 4. You have school. She looked up, her expression a mixture of determination and uncertainty. I was waiting for you, Papa. There's something I need to talk to you about. Miguel set his coat aside, noticing the official-looking forms spread across the table. His heart sank. School forms usually meant expenses they couldn't afford. What is this, mi vida? Sophia took a deep breath. It's an application for a summer medical program at the university for high school students interested in becoming doctors. Miguel sat down slowly, studying his daughter's face. Doctor? He repeated, the word catching in his throat. My teachers think I could get a scholarship. Sophia continued quickly. And they'd help with transportation. It would be a chance to learn about medicine, to see if it's really what I want to do. Miguel glanced at the application, noting the cost listed in small print at the bottom. Even with a scholarship, there would be expenses. Proper clothes, supplies, meals away from home, things they struggled to afford. When did you become interested in medicine? He asked softly. Sophia hesitated, then reached into her backpack and pulled out a familiar notebook. His notebook. I saw your studies, Papa. I know you've been learning medical things at night. Her voice grew quieter. I know you wanted to be a doctor once. The silence between them filled with unspoken dreams and shared sacrifices. Miguel looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw not just his child, but a young woman with the same fierce determination that had once driven him. Wait here, he said, rising from the table. He went to his cleaning cart and carefully lifted out the textbooks, bringing them back to the kitchen and placing them gently on the table in front of Sophia. My professor gave these to me tonight, he explained. He saw that I was interested in learning. Sophia ran her fingers over the book covers, her eyes wide. These are university textbooks. Miguel nodded. Maybe, his voice broke and he cleared his throat. Maybe we can study together sometimes. Sophia looked up at him, tears filling her eyes. Is it really possible, Papa? Could I become a doctor? Miguel thought of all the barriers standing in their way. Money, time, the endless struggle of immigrant life in a country that often seemed determined to limit their dreams. But he also thought of the note Dr. Harrison had left. Knowledge belongs to those who seek it. Yes, he said firmly, taking his daughter's hand. If that is your dream, we will find a way. Sophia launched herself into his arms and Miguel held her tight, feeling the vibration of her heart against his chest. That miraculous organ he'd been studying in secret, now beating with renewed purpose in both of them. Now, he said, pulling back to look at the application, let's fill this out together. The university medical building looked different in daylight. Miguel had only ever seen it in the artificial glow of fluorescent lights during the quiet midnight hours when students and professors were long gone. Now, on a bright Saturday morning, it bustled with activity, intimidating in its energy and purpose. Are you sure this is okay? He asked Sophia for the third time as they approached the entrance. Come on. Coming with you? Sophia squeezed his hand. Mrs. Chen specifically said parents are encouraged to attend the orientation. What she didn't add was how proud she was to walk these halls with her father beside her. How she wanted everyone to see the man whose quiet determination had inspired her own. 6 weeks had passed since the night they'd stayed up until dawn, filling out her application and talking about dreams they'd both kept hidden. 6 weeks of shifted schedules, of Miguel adjusting his sleep to help Sophia prepare for entrance interviews, of Sophia staying up late to quiz her father on the material in his growing collection of medical textbooks. They entered the building together, following signs to a large lecture hall where other students and parents were already gathering. Miguel instinctively moved toward the back, accustomed to remaining unnoticed, but Sophia gently pulled him towards seats in the middle. Welcome to the University Summer Medical Exploration Program. A woman at the podium announced once everyone was seated. I'm Dr. Rivera, the program director. We're excited to have such a talented group of high school students joining us this year. As Dr. Wan Sonon and Matcha Shorin Turin, Rivera continued her welcome speech. Miguel's eyes drifted around the room. Most of the other parents wore business attire or casual but expensive clothing. He'd worn his best shirt, the one he saved for special occasions, but it was still visibly worn at the collar. His hands, no matter how thoroughly he scrubbed them, carried the ingrained evidence of years of manual labor. Sophia must have sensed his discomfort because she leaned closer, whispering, Did you know, Doctor? Rivera was born in Mexico. She's one of the top cardiologists in the state now. Miguel's attention snapped back to the woman at the podium. Now that Sophia mentioned it, he detected the faint accent beneath Dr. Rivera's polished English. Something settled in his chest, a small but significant reassurance. After the general orientation, the group dispersed for tours and smaller informational sessions. As Miguel and Sophia prepared to follow their assigned group, a familiar voice called out, "Miguel? I thought that was you." They turned to find Dr. Harrison approaching, a warm smile on his face. "Dr. Harrison," Miguel said, surprise evident in his voice. "I didn't expect to see you here. I volunteer with the program every summer," the professor explained before turning his attention to Sophia. "And you must be the daughter I've heard about." Sophia's eyes widened. "You've heard about me?" "Doctor, Tamana 100%. Harrison laughed. "Your father mentions you every time we talk. I understand you're interested in medicine?" "Yes, sir," Sophia replied, her voice stronger than Miguel had expected. "I want to become a doctor." "Well, you're in good company, Doctor. Winamajawan," Harrison said, gesturing toward the dispersing crowd of students. "Those textbooks useful?" he asked, turning back to Miguel. "Very much, sir. Thank you." Miguel hesitated, then added, "Sophia and I have been studying together." Something shifted in Dr. Harrison's expression, surprise followed by what looked like respect. "Both of you studying medicine? That's remarkable." Before Miguel could clarify that his own studies were merely casual, a passing administrator called for Dr. Harrison's assistance. "I should go," he said. "But Miguel, stop by my office sometime during normal hours. I'd like to discuss something with you." He nodded to Sophia. "Make the most of this program, young lady. It can open doors." As Dr. Son, Surinamon Tirwan, Harrison walked away, Sophia turned to her father, eyes bright with curiosity. "You talked to him? About me?" Miguel shrugged, embarrassed. "Sometimes when I clean his office, he asks about my day." The tour continued, but Miguel's mind kept returning to Dr. Harrison's parting words. What could the professor possibly want to discuss? And why during normal hours, when Miguel would typically be sleeping between shifts? Later that evening, as they rode the bus home together, Sophia couldn't stop talking about everything she'd seen and learned. The laboratories with their sophisticated equipment, the medical library with thousands of volumes, the simulation room where medical students practice procedures. "And next week, Doctor Rivera said we'll get to observe an actual surgery. Well, through a video feed, not in person. But still, a real heart surgery, Papa." Miguel smiled, his exhaustion forgotten in the face of his daughter's enthusiasm. "You would make a good surgeon, I think. Your hands are steady." Sophia leaned against his shoulder. "Like yours," she said quietly. Miguel looked down at his hands, calloused, rough, bearing small scars from years of work with harsh cleaning chemicals and heavy equipment. Not surgeons' hands, not anymore, but hands that had kept them fed, kept them housed, kept the dream alive long enough for Sophia to catch it. "Papa," Sophia said, her voice growing serious, "do you ever regret it, not becoming a doctor?" The question caught him off guard. "Regret is a luxury we cannot afford," he answered carefully. "I made choices. Some were forced on me, some I chose. But they brought me here with you. How could I regret that?" Sophia was quiet for a moment. "I found a program," she finally said, "for adults. At the community college, basic medical certification courses. They have night classes." Miguel stared at her. "Sophia, you could still do it," she continued, the words tumbling out faster. "Not become a full doctor maybe, but a medical assistant or a nurse. Mrs. Chen said lots of immigrants do it. There are scholarships and—" "Sophia," Miguel interrupted gently. "I am 43 years old. I clean buildings at night. My English is better than you think," she insisted. "And, Doctor, Harrison obviously sees something in you. Why else would he give you those books? Why would he talk to you about me?" The bus lurched to a stop, their stop. They rose together, the conversation pausing as they navigated down the aisle and onto the street. But Sophia wasn't finished. "Just think about it," she said as they walked the final blocks home. "That's all I'm asking. Just think about it." Miguel nodded, not trusting himself to speak. In truth, he had thought about it, had allowed himself brief, indulgent moments of imagining a different path. But dreams required more than imagination. They required money, time, opportunity, all things that had remained just beyond his reach for so long. Yet something had shifted in recent weeks. The textbooks, the conversations with Dr. Harrison, Sophia's acceptance into the summer program. Small changes, perhaps, but each one widening the horizon of what seemed possible. As they climbed the stairs to their apartment, Miguel made a decision. He would visit Dr. Harrison during daylight hours. He would listen to whatever the professor wanted to discuss. And for the first time in many years, he would allow himself to consider a future different from the one he'd resigned himself to. Quote, the community college brochure lay open on the kitchen table, its colorful pages highlighting programs in allied health fields. Miguel studied the requirements for the certified nursing assistant program, the shortest path into medical work, according to the smiling advisor who had helped him earlier that day. High school diploma or equivalent, basic English proficiency, ability to attend evening classes twice weekly for 4 months, clinical rotations on weekends. His fingers traced the listed tuition, $1,200, not including books, uniform, certification exam, a fortune to him, but not entirely impossible. The envelope of savings labeled future contained nearly half that amount already. The apartment door opened, and Sophia burst in, her face flushed with excitement. Papa, you won't believe what happened today. Miguel quickly closed the brochure, sliding it beneath the newspaper. Tell me, mi vida. Sophia dropped her backpack and pulled out a folder emblazoned with the university logo. Dr. Rivera asked me to assist with a research project, just basic data entry and organizing supplies, but I'd be working in an actual research lab with medical students. Pride swelled in Miguel's chest. That's wonderful. When do you start? Next week. It's after my regular program hours, so I'll be home later some days. She hesitated. It's paid, Papa. Not much, but something. Miguel's eyebrows rose. Paid? Sophia nodded. Doctor, Rivera said undergraduate research assistants usually get a small stipend. Since I'm a high school student in their special program, they can't pay me as much, but she pulled a paper from the folder. This is the form you need to sign. Miguel took the paper, reading the details carefully. The position would pay Sophia $10 per hour, up to 10 hours weekly. More money than she had ever earned before. You don't have to use it for household expenses, Miguel said, anticipating her next words. This is yours for school supplies, for college applications later. Sophia sat down across from him. Actually, I was thinking we could split it. Half for my college fund and half for... She reached across the table and pulled out the brochure he had hidden. This... Miguel stared at her, speechless. I saw you talking to Dr. Harrison yesterday, Sophia continued, after you picked me up from the program. What did he say to you? Miguel sighed. There were no secrets between them anymore, it seemed. He suggested I consider taking classes. Said the university has a program for staff, reduced tuition for certain courses, and I told him I appreciate the thought, but it's not possible. My schedule, our finances, but the community college might be possible. Sophia interrupted, tapping the brochure, especially with my research stipend helping. Miguel shook his head, both amazed and concerned by his daughter's determination. Sophia, your money should go toward your future, not mine. You are my future, she said simply. Everything I want to become is because of you, because of watching you study those medical books after working all night, because of how you never gave up. The word struck Miguel like a physical force. Had his late-night studies truly shaped his daughter's aspirations? Had his stubborn refusal to abandon old dreams somehow planted new ones in her? There's something else, Sophia said, reaching for her backpack. She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. This came today. Miguel opened it cautiously. Inside was a letter on university letterhead, addressed to Sophia. His English reading was slow but adequate. By the time he reached the second paragraph, his hands were trembling. A scholarship? He whispered. For next summer? Sophia nodded, her eyes shining. Doctor, Rivera nominated me. If I complete this summer's program successfully and maintain my grades next school year, I'll have a full scholarship to return next summer for their advanced program. And ... She took a deep breath. Doctor, Rivera said it could lead to undergraduate scholarships when I'm ready for college. Miguel read and reread the letter, his vision blurring with unshed tears. This was what he had sacrificed for, what all the long nights, the aching back, the endless work had been building toward. Not just survival, but opportunity. Not just existence, but possibility. We should celebrate, he said finally, setting the letter down carefully. Sophia smiled. We can celebrate when you register for classes? Miguel laughed, shaking his head at his daughter's persistence. You don't give up, do you? I learned from the best, she replied. Later that night, after Sophia had gone to bed, Miguel sat alone at the kitchen table, the community college application form before him. The questions were simple enough: name, address, education history. But when he reached the line asking for career goal, his pencil hovered uncertainly. What was his goal at 43? Was it realistic to think he could still enter the medical field, even in a support role? Or was he simply indulging an old dream better left in the past? He glanced toward Sophia's bedroom door. Behind it slept the true embodiment of his dreams, his daughter, whose future now seemed brighter and more certain than he'd ever dared hope. Perhaps that was enough. Perhaps his own aspirations had served their purpose by inspiring hers. But as he turned back to the application, another thought surfaced. If he abandoned his own pursuit of knowledge now, what message would that send? That dreams had expiration dates? That passion and learning were only for the young? Slowly, deliberately, Miguel wrote on the line, medical assistant. Then beneath it, in smaller letters, first step. He completed the rest of the form, signed his name, and slid it into an envelope. Tomorrow he would mail it. Tomorrow he would tell Sophia that they would both be students. For tonight, he opened his medical textbook to the chapter on the cardiovascular system, his pencil ready to take notes on the remarkable organ that kept them both alive, that pumped with renewed purpose in both their chests, the heart with its stubborn, persistent beat that refused to be silenced. The hospital corridors gleamed under fluorescent lights, a labyrinth of interconnected hallways bustling with activity even at this late hour. Miguel navigated them with practiced ease, his blue scrubs marking him as part of this world, rather than an outsider cleaning it. 3 years had passed since that summer when Sophia first entered the university's medical program. 3 years of profound change for both of them. Mr. Reyes called a nurse from the station ahead. Room 412 needs assistance. On my way, Miguel replied, already changing direction. He was no longer a janitor, but a certified nursing assistant working the overnight shift at University Hospital, the same institution where he had once emptied trash cans and mopped floors. The irony wasn't lost on him. He still worked nights, still moved through hallways while others slept. But now he moved with a stethoscope around his neck and purpose in his stride. In room 412, an elderly man was trying to get out of bed, his IV line tangled. Mr. Peterson, Miguel said gently, entering the room. Remember what we talked about? You need to call for help when you want to get up. The man looked confused but allowed Miguel to assist him to the bathroom and back to bed. Gracias, Mr. Peterson said as Miguel adjusted his blankets. Miguel smiled. De nada. You're learning Spanish? My nurse assistant is teaching me. The man replied with a weak grin. 1 word each night. After ensuring Mr. Peterson was comfortable, Miguel continued his rounds. Each patient interaction reinforced what he had discovered over the past 3 years, that his true gift wasn't just in understanding medical science, but in bringing humanity to it. His accent, which he had once tried to minimize, now often served as a bridge to Spanish-speaking patients terrified by hospital environments. His calloused hands, which had once seemed unsuited for medical work, brought comfort to the elderly who recognized the strength and gentleness in them. At 3 a.m., Miguel took his break in the hospital cafeteria, opening a textbook beside his coffee cup. He was now in his 2nd semester of the licensed practical nursing program, another step on the path he'd begun when he mailed that community college application 3 years ago. His phone vibrated with a text message. Sophia, despite his insistence that she focus on her studies, still checked on him during his shifts. How's work tonight? Don't forget to study for your pharmacology test. Miguel smiled. The role reversal wasn't lost on him, his daughter now reminding him to study, encouraging him when courses became challenging. All good. 4 patients. Studying now. You should be sleeping. 3 dots appeared as she typed her response. Can't sleep. Finishing application for the university's early medical school admission program. Love you. Pride and wonder washed over Miguel. Sophia was in her 2nd year of undergraduate studies, already preparing for medical school applications. Her path, once seemingly impossible, had become increasingly clear with each scholarship, each research opportunity, each mentor who recognized her extraordinary potential. Love you too. Proud of you always. Miguel returned to his textbook, but his mind drifted to how dramatically their lives had changed. The basement apartment had been replaced by a small 2-bedroom house they rented closer to the university. Their evening meals, once rushed affairs between his sleep and work, had become cherished times for sharing knowledge. Sophia explaining undergraduate biology concepts, Miguel describing patient care techniques. and Dr. Raj Sharma, Surshid Harrison, now retired but still a presence in their lives, had become a mentor to them both, occasionally joining them for dinner, bringing additional textbooks, offering guidance on navigating academic systems neither Miguel nor Sophia had been born knowing how to manage. The night shift supervisor appeared in the cafeteria doorway. Miguel, doctor, Patel is looking for you. She's in the ER. Miguel closed his book, curious. Doctor, occurred to where to Mater. Patel supervised medical students in the emergency department, but rarely interacted with nursing assistants directly. In the controlled chaos of the emergency room, Doctor, Patel stood reviewing charts at the central station. She looked up as Miguel approached. Ah, Mr. Reyes. Thank you for coming down. She gestured to a young man beside her wearing a short white coat, a medical student. This is Carlos. He's struggling with taking blood pressure readings on Spanish-speaking patients who are anxious. I thought you might help. Miguel nodded, hiding his surprise. Of course. For the next 20 minutes, Miguel demonstrated techniques for putting nervous patients at ease, how to explain procedures simply in Spanish, how to position oneself to appear less intimidating, how small gestures of respect could build trust quickly. The medical student watched intently, practicing phrases Miguel suggested, adjusting his approach under guidance. Thank you, Carlos said sincerely when they finished. My parents are from El Salvador, but my Spanish isn't fluent enough for medical terminology. Miguel smiled. My English wasn't either when I started. You learn what you need to help others. As the student left to see another patient, Doctor, Patel regarded Miguel thoughtfully. You're in the LPN program now, correct? Yes, ma'am. Second semester. And after that? Miguel hesitated. I hope to continue to RN eventually. It will take time. Doctor en mas. One en one. Patel nodded. Your daughter is in our undergraduate pre-med program. Exceptional student. Yes. Miguel agreed, unsure where the conversation was heading. We have a new initiative starting. Doctor, Tornation Watching Warning, Patel continued, seeking to support healthcare workers from underrepresented backgrounds in advancing their education, particularly those who demonstrate exceptional patient care skills. She handed Miguel a brochure. The application deadline is next month. I think you should consider it. Miguel glanced at the glossy paper. Pathway to Nursing Excellence, Accelerated RN Program with Tuition Assistance. Don't know what to say. Say you'll apply. Doctor, Patel replied simply. We need more healthcare providers with your natural abilities. She checked her watch. I should get back to my students. Think about it, Mr. Reyes. As Dr. Patel walked away, Miguel stood motionless, the brochure in his hand feeling both weightless and impossibly heavy with potential. An accelerated program with financial support could shorten his nursing journey by years. He carefully tucked the brochure into his pocket, alongside the small notebook he still carried, no longer filled with copied diagrams from professors' whiteboards, but with his own observations of patients, medications, and treatment responses. By the time his shift ended at 7 a.m., Miguel had made his decision. He would apply for the program. Not just for himself, but because every step forward on his path seemed to widen the trail for Sophia to follow, just as her achievements inspired his continued progress. Outside the hospital, the rising sun painted the eastern sky with promise. Miguel paused to feel its warmth on his face before heading to his car. Another change from the days of long bus rides. Today, Sophia would be waiting at home, probably still awake after a night of working on applications. They would share breakfast, compare notes on their studies, and add another page to the story neither of them could have written alone. As he drove through awakening streets, Miguel thought about how far they had come from that night when Sophia discovered his secret notebook. How neither of them had realized then that their dreams weren't separate, but intertwined, each strengthening the other. The janitor who studied medical texts by night and the daughter who became inspired to pursue medicine, both finding their way forward through the power of witnessing each other's quiet determination. Doctor. Sophia Reyes, please report to the ER. Doctor. Sophia Reyes to the emergency room. The announcement echoed through the hospital corridors as Sophia hurried toward the elevator, stethoscope bouncing against her white coat. Even after 6 months as a first-year resident, hearing her name preceded by doctor still sent a thrill through her. The emergency room was busy. A multiple car accident had brought in several patients simultaneously. Sophia checked in with the attending physician, who directed her to Bay 3. 72-year-old female, Possible fractured wrist, needs assessment and pain management, he said briskly before moving to a more critical case. Sophia pulled back the curtain to find an elderly woman cradling her arm, her face tight with pain. A nurse was attempting to gather information, but the patient's responses were rapid Spanish that the young nurse clearly couldn't follow. "I'll take over," Sophia said, switching smoothly to Spanish as she introduced herself to the patient. The woman's relief was immediate. "Gracias a Dios, someone who understands me. It hurts so much, doctor." Sophia gently examined the swollen wrist, asking questions about how the injury occurred while explaining each step of her examination. The familiar rhythm of Spanish medical terms flowed easily, terms she had first learned not in medical school, but at her kitchen table, studying alongside her father. After ordering x-rays and prescribing pain medication, Sophia updated the patient's chart at the nurse's station. A familiar voice behind her made her turn. "Dr. Reyes, Dad." Sophia's professional demeanor briefly slipped as she smiled at her father, handsome in his navy blue nursing scrubs with the hospital's RN badge clipped to his pocket. "I thought you were off today." Miguel Reyes shrugged. "They called me in, staff shortage. I saw your name on the board." Pride colored his voice, as it always did when he said doctor. "Reyes," in reference to his daughter. "I have a Spanish-speaking patient in Bay 3 who needs some reassurance," Sophia said. "Wrist fracture, elderly, quite anxious. Would you have a minute?" "Of course," Miguel replied, professional modes engaging for both of them. They worked seamlessly together, Sophia explaining the treatment plan, while Miguel prepared the patient for transport to radiology, his gentle manner and fluent Spanish easing the woman's anxiety. "You make a good team," the patient observed, looking between them. Miguel smiled. "She's my daughter." "Ah!" The woman's eyes widened with understanding. "The father who inspired the doctor." Sophia glanced at her father, whose expression revealed surprise. "How did you know that?" she asked the patient. "I read the article," the woman replied, "in the university magazine, about the immigrant janitor who studied medicine after midnight and inspired his daughter to become a doctor. They even had your picture." She looked at Miguel with newfound respect. "I cut it out and gave it to my grandson. He was thinking of dropping out of school." Miguel's face flushed slightly. He'd been uncomfortable with the attention when the university's alumni magazine had approached them for the feature story last year. Sophia had convinced him it might inspire others facing similar challenges. "Did it help your grandson?" Sophia asked softly. The woman nodded. "He's studying to be a teacher now. Said if you two could do it, with all you faced, he had no excuse." After the patient was wheeled away for her x-ray, Miguel and Sophia stood together in the momentarily quiet corridor. "I didn't realize people actually read that article," Miguel said. Sophia squeezed his arm. "More than you know, Dad." "Doctor, Harrison told me the pre-med program has seen increased applications from first-generation students since it was published." Miguel shook his head, still amazed that their personal journey had meaning beyond their own lives. "I need to check on my patients upstairs." "Dinner tomorrow night?" "Absolutely. I'm bringing the study materials for my board exams." Miguel laughed. "And I'll bring my research proposal draft. Between the two of us, we might actually eat some food between all the studying." They parted ways at the elevator, Sophia returning to the emergency department, Miguel heading upstairs to the medical floor, where he now worked as a registered nurse pursuing his bachelor's in nursing. Their paths in the hospital frequently crossed this way, brief professional interactions layered with the deep personal bond that had brought them both here. Later that night, as Sophia drove home to the small house they still shared to economize during their respective educational journeys, she thought about the elderly patient's words, "The father who inspired the doctor." It was true but incomplete. They had inspired each other, continued to inspire each other, their dreams evolving in tandem, their achievements intertwined. At a red light, Sophia glanced at her passenger seat where her medical bag sat beside a worn textbook. Not one of hers, but her father's current nursing research text. She had added sticky notes to certain pages that connected to his research interest in improving care for Spanish-speaking patients. The light turned green, and Sophia drove on, thinking about how far they had traveled from that small apartment where a janitor secretly studied medical diagrams by night and a teenage girl discovered her future by watching him. Neither of them had walked their path alone, and neither had suspected when Miguel first opened that medical textbook in Dr. Harrison's office after cleaning it, how far that single act of persistent hope would ultimately lead them both. Two dreamers, father and daughter, finding their way forward. Not despite each other, but because of each other. One studying late into the night, unaware he'd inspire his daughter to become a doctor. The other watching and learning until she could lead the way for them both.